welcome to Michigan Football at the Voice of College Football. I am one of your post-game hosts and weekly contributors, Desmond. I am here with my partner, Dre, and we have a special guest with us, Chris Nowosky. He is going to talk some Rutgers football, obviously with the big night game matchup with Michigan and Rutgers. Dre, how we doing, my friend?
Doing well. Excited for another week.
Absolutely, absolutely. And Chris, thank you for joining us. How's it going today?
Good, thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. Always good to jump on, a lot of these shows. So, appreciate it, and thanks again.
Absolutely. So, yeah, let's dive right into it. Obviously, Michigan and Rutgers have the night game coming up this weekend. So, kind of give us a rundown of just kind of Rutgers, what the season's been for them as of now, and what you foresee, this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, so the season has been kind of a roller coaster from right from the start. Presumptive returning starter Noah Vedral, quarterback. He got hurt in training camp. So they kind of rolled with a bunch of different quarterbacks in and out at the beginning of the season, but they still managed to go 3-0. In the non-conference, and then Vedral came back and then kind of mixing things up a little bit. Adding him in with Gavin Wimsatt and Evan Simon. Even Giant Langan has played a little quarterback at times, even though he's playing tight end now. Rutgers fired their offensive coordinator Sean Gleason a couple weeks ago, so during the right before the bye week, so they've been kind of rolling with the interim guy there who actually was the previous or was interim head coach and interim offense coordinator in 2019, right before Greg Schiano took over. He stayed on staff. But yeah, I mean the defense has played well this season for Rutgers. It didn't really seem that way against Minnesota, but that was more so the offense kind of not being able to do anything and turn the ball over. Really the offense obviously has been the issue. I mean, you fire the offensive coordinator, obviously things are not going well. So, but yeah, I mean Rutgers does have a couple of playmakers. They just have to give them the ball, and right now they're really developing Wimsatt. They're giving him the keys to the castle, I guess you could say. Redshirt freshman. He just turned 19 the other day. So yeah, it's his team now for the rest of the way. It looks like, and I guess they're seeing what they got with them now.
Now, he was a pretty highly recruited quarterback, if I'm not mistaken. I think I read, what was I reading? I think CBS, maybe something like that. But they were saying even Michigan was recruiting him pretty hard, and he ended up early enrolling at Rutgers. So
Yeah.
I mean, potential wise, he seems to kind of have the potential that a lot of the schools are looking for.
Sure. Yeah, he was a four-star guy. He actually came. He played like three high school games. I think it was his senior year, and he
Okay.
came in like the end of September, early October, and he played his four games last fall, and then redshirted, and he got hurt a little bit earlier this season. So he hasn't been playing as much, but he did start last week against Minnesota. That was his first game back, and he's gonna be playing again. He does have some accuracy issues, but he has like everything that you want in terms of the look of a a modern day quarterback. He has a good arm. He can run it. Right now, it's about kind of making the right reads and also making sure he's healthy and everything. So yeah, I mean he obviously does have some things to work on, but right now they're gonna ride and die with the mistakes, and hopefully he can learn and get better, and everyone's sees him as the kind of future of the quarterback and future of the team. So
Yeah, and I think having the young guy already on campus is definitely a big deal when you're talking about building a program and really taking those strides. Now, obviously, we all know about Greg Schiano's tenure before he was, before this season. Obviously, coming back to Rutgers, did a phenomenal job while he was there in his first go round. How are people seeing him now? How's the Rutgers fan base, seeing him and feeling about his progress and what he's done so far this year?
yeah, everyone was really excited to have him come on board. I mean, there was maybe a certain period where he wasn't gonna be named the head coach, but obviously there's a lot of like fans that kind of helped push Pet Hobbs to hire him and everything like that. But he's really changed the culture of the team for the better. There's great chemistry. He's made staff changes after a couple years. So um, I think the fans really want to see the team kind of turned the corner a little bit, but I think it's a process. It's a multi-year rebuild, and they're really maybe like 2 years away to really seeing some like really good progress. Obviously they're going to have some Big Ten wins along the way, but obviously it's hard to do it, in the Big Ten East when you're playing against Ohio State and Michigan every week and or every year in Penn State. So, but hopefully, the no division things in a couple years will help them out a little bit, or at least getting them away from some of the other powers. But
Yeah, they play with some of the. I was looking at the schedule and like, man, they have Rutgers has quite the close because I believe I saw Michigan. They got Penn State. I don't know if they have. I think did they play Ohio State already or
yeah, they did. Yeah,
okay.
yeah, early season,
And
early
then I
on.
think
Yeah,
they have Michigan State as well. So
yep.
like, man, I was looking to see. Do you think that they will be bowl eligible? I think they'll probably be close. What are your thoughts on that?
So I'm leaning toward no. I know in the preseason I had them pegged at 4 wins. I think 6 is too much of a task right now. I mean, they got Michigan this week. You still have Michigan State, Penn State, and Maryland. Maybe they can sneak that Michigan State win. I mean, I don't know what they're gonna look like in a couple weeks. I know last year, Rutgers and Maryland were both 5-5 heading into last week, and Maryland just absolutely destroyed them. So I think Maryland just has too much firepower and offense for Rutgers to keep up. But yeah, so I'm gonna lean toward no. But I mean anything's possible. If we do get 5 wins, I mean I don't think they're gonna have the whole COVID thing like last year when they got into the bowl game. Funny enough, they actually got into a quote unquote better bowl game than they would have had they beat Maryland. So, I mean, who knows how everything, that was kind of an interesting situation there. But yeah, I think you have to wait till next year to kind of think about a bowl probably.
Okay. Yeah, and you just never know. I don't know. Like I said, if the 5 wins would be able to get you in, usually it was kind of that 6 win was the mark. So
Yep.
who knows, right? If they have, and it feels like every year they're bringing on another bowl game and creating a new one and getting to the point where it's like, hey man, we might not have enough teams to fill this at just the 6 win. So
Yep.
who knows as far as how that'll end up. Well, Chris, I know you've got some things to get to. Any kind of last things you want to tell us about, Rutgers, kind of the future, anything that maybe our viewers aren't aware of?
Yeah, I'm obviously not picking a Rutgers win here. Obviously, I think Michigan State or Michigan's gonna win, pretty handily here. But the team overall is young, and like I said, that it's gonna take a couple years for them to really see the progress in terms of the wins column. But the defense has played really well this season. There's a lot of young guys, especially on the defensive line. Um, we talked to defensive end Aaron Lewis today, and I think it was last week. Pro Football Focus put out a stat that he and only Alabama's Will Anderson had both 80 plus grades in run defense and pass rush. So, some Rutgers guys are getting some attention there. He was actually really kind of Minnesota kind of put two offensive linemen on him or tight end offensive linemen on him on almost every play, and he was getting double teamed. And so it's up to other guys on the line and the defense to kind of step up if other teams are going to shut him down. So, but yeah, he's been a really good player. You know, they got a couple really good linebackers that are playing really well, and Tyron Powell, Deion Jennings. They're very thin at a linebacker, so it's mostly only those two guys. And obviously, with Michigan's run game, I think they'll be able to wear him down pretty quickly. But yeah, I mean, anything's possible. But I mean, a night game, I'm sure the crowd's gonna be is gonna be pretty good there. I know Rutgers added some different kind of lights and music to the stadium atmosphere this year, so I'm sure it'll be a good time.
Nice. Well, we will obviously definitely be tuning in. The night game, I believe, 7:30 kick. So once again, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. I've got Chris's Twitter handle down at the you see the banner there. So thanks again for joining us. We definitely appreciate it, and have a good one, man.
Sure. All right. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. Talk to you soon.
Take care, Chris.
Have a good one. See you.
Drizzy Dre, how's it going, man?
Going well, man. It's been a pretty eventful and chaotic couple of days aftermath of the game. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, definitely want to hit on that briefly. I would definitely not like to bombard the whole show with that because, as you know, we're moving forward for both universities, and Michigan definitely has a lot in front of them. So, but we have to hit on, the aftermath of the state in Michigan game, and the fallout from it. People's reactions, both fan bases reactions, what it means probably going forward, looking to next year. And I'll start. Um, you know, there's at the time that the news hit about the situation, we were, of course, doing the post game show, on Saturday night and late Saturday night, mind you. And, we're getting people letting us know what's going on. Me and you didn't even have time really to see the videos everybody was posting because we were doing the show. But look, since that time, more information has came out, more videos have came out, and disciplinary action has been put in place. At first it was 4, but now up to 8 MSU players have been suspended based on their actions, and what video showed to be physical violence against 2 Michigan football players. And I gotta say, man, we I think we all know upon reflection that this rivalry was always heated. There was always some nastiness with it, but um, what this past weekend really showed you was just how bad it can get. Um, how people can get physically violent, how people can use verbal violence and be degrading and disrespectful. And I think that goes both ways. Um, and by all means, and I'm talking about overall, how we view each other, how we talk to each other, goes beyond just the heinous actions that were taking place. Talking about the bigger picture here, and it was interesting. You're seeing things transpire, and it's interesting. You're looking at the comments, and we all know that sometimes social media can be a really bad place to get a good hold of people's true views on things. But on one side, you have certain parts of the fan base like MSU that were very defensive of what happened and why was it justifiably in some sort of way, or passively saying things happen, but hey, this probably is why, and kind of throwing it back onto Michigan fans and Michigan fans, and not all, of course, but I was very disappointed with somehow, some of the things that Michigan fans were saying, some of the words they were using. Um, and it's not really the platform to do it, but definitely that I think there's no shock that me and you are part of a certain ethnicity, and certain words that were used to have a certain undertone, whether people who use those words understand what that means or not. Definitely, I thought, even though the players for MSU did something very heinous, um, I don't know if it's fair to label them one thing or the other, right? And that was disappointing to see for the Michigan side, right? So it went a multitude of ways, from fans to players to analysts, everybody giving their thoughts on it. It was an ugly situation, definitely a situation that we don't want repeated from any side going forward. And I heard some people speculate that, man, the way this is going, the next step is, God forbid, is now fans getting involved, in the stands, stuff like that, right? I mean, there was a video of some silly fan, reaching and touching Mel, trying to touch Mel Tucker's head, and he rightfully so knocked the hand away. But this particular person, was like, hey, check this out. It keeps getting better, and this is one fool. Definitely not a representation of our entire fan base is from Michigan, but it's people like that make us look really bad. Like, hey, hold on a second here. Look, one thing does not have to do with the other. Why are you showing a video of Mel Tucker defending himself? And I know they banned him. I just didn't like the fact that some people were posting that as like Mel in that situation, that particular response, there's something wrong. Anybody touch my head, I'm knocking your hand away.
Right. That your admission ticket does not grant you that.
Right, exactly. So it was ugly. It was ugliness all around, and of course, certain actions way more heinous than others. But I don't know. It's just one of those things you don't want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and my thoughts on it had a couple thoughts. Number one, I thought Jim Harbaugh coming to the podium, and his media session, and using the word assault, I think that was very deliberate, because there was an assault that happened, multiple assaults that happened. I thought that was very deliberate by him. If I am a parent of one of those Michigan players, if I am a representative, any kind of, if I have any attachment to them and opinion and get their ear, I would say take that. Take the incident as far as you possibly can. I would tell, if it were my son, I would say we are going to prosecute everybody involved to the furthest extent of the law. If that is misdemeanor assault, if that's felony assault, I have no idea what it is. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know the law. But what I do know is that was definitely assault. And like you said, it was ugly. It was something that and here is one of the unfortunate things, right? The most unfortunate is young men on the Michigan football team were assaulted. Like that is number one, right? But another thing is, another negative is no one is talking about how Michigan dominated their rival, right? Like Michigan is not getting the just due of what they did on Saturday night. Like, and I get it, right? It's not, everything's not about football, but I'm just saying, had this event been removed and this never happened, that's what that's what everything would be talked about. Would be, it's a rivalry game, right? Mel Tucker is 2-0 against Michigan, right? Like Jim Harbaugh just came through and they dominated them, right? So that's unfortunate. And then the last thing I'll say is what I have learned, and as I get older and try to mature, is typically what you're going to see as far as when it comes to social media is you're going to see the loud minority. Is that all Michigan fans don't feel the way that some of the loud minority, does and comment that way. Because I saw something too with a Michigan State recruit who was in high school. He's literally in his high school with a Michigan State hat on, right? And being called names on social media. Like, what does he have to do? He did nothing, right? And then it's just, at the end of the day, that those are the unfortunate parts is the assault that happened to those players. Is the unfortunate part is that is what is being talked about. It was being talked about on all the shows that I watch, right? The Undisputed, that's what they were talking about. They didn't talk about the final score. I don't think they even said the final score, right? Because this is what overtook it, unfortunately. So, that it kind of stinks. It's unfortunate it happened. And the last thing I'll say is regardless of if it is right, we've never heard any reports of any fights happening in the tunnel. We've heard about kind of jawing back and forth, chippy stuff, whatever, a little pushing. Right, that's not new. We've heard that before, especially in the rivalry games. But what we do know is when something extreme happens, change comes from that. I don't, and I'm not here to blame anybody or say it was anyone's fault or the tunnel shouldn't be the way it is. What I'm saying is when something extreme like this happens, change comes. And I was listening to Joel Klatt, and maybe it's just a timing thing to where after the game, the away team gets whatever, exit 10 minutes, to get off the field. And then, what I
We're
don't
not
know,
talking
but
about
I think
restructuring.
something's going to happen. I don't think they're going to restructure the
No,
tunnel,
this is no. But
but
that's not
just a
what happened.
timing thing, right? Like, hey, you've got
Yeah.
X amount of time to get back to the locker room, so on and so forth. Like, and maybe that's it. I don't know, but I
Read the
think something is
situation.
gonna change from it.
And shit, look, read the situation. Look, people, you have to just also recognize, you have to take into account context, right? Football is a highly physical, emotional game. I mean, you are essentially getting in a controlled rage fight between whistles, literally. And just being human beings, it's hard to kind of turn that off in a moment, right? So what, from a administrative standpoint, you need to have the awareness that we need to be extremely cautious with keeping these guys separated, um, going in halftime and also post game, just due to the nature of the situation, right? It you're gonna have some guys who are buddies who know each other, but most guys, they just were going head to head and banging. Like, so as they're walking back to the tunnels, you're going to hear some jawing. Guys gonna be looking at other guys funny. You just knocked me out. Yeah, I'm upset. You just called me trash. Yeah, I'm upset. Right? It's
Mhm.
hard to just turn those things off. So you have to have the awareness to say, you know what, we got to keep these guys separated, because it's not like being out on the street or at somebody's house or something like that when you're in a normal state of mind. You're in a very playing football. You're in a very heightened state of emotion, and focus and physicality, right? It's literally like it's a battle. You're in a battle type mentality, right? So I think understanding that, is very crucial in making and protecting guys from themselves, right?
Mhm.
And um, look, it's terrible, and there's no excuse to grab a helmet, and that's sort of things. Really, it was the helmet situation for me that really took it to another level, because scuffles are going to happen, right? You see scuffles on the field, but it's when weapons are used, that's when things go to another level. So yeah, absolutely, there's I agree. There will be changes going forward, and it can be as simple as that. Just tying the head. You know what? We're not even, we'll take put an extra couple of 5-10 minutes or whatever on the halftime clock, which I think it's 30 minutes normally. Put
Mhm.
40 up there. Allow for one team to not just get in the tunnel, get in the locker room with the doors closed, and then allow the other. Right? Are we really going to notice that much? Probably not. And those are a couple of tweaks that you can do. But look, um, the story really should have been, Michigan wins relatively easily, albeit struggling in the red zone. That should be the general consensus, the truth, the general consensus of that game. But to your point, man, it got overshadowed by a nasty situation.
Absolutely. And we have the man himself, Mark Rogers, joining us. Mark, how we doing?
I'm doing well, guys. I apologize for being late, but you guys certainly can take it yourselves, and maybe a lot of people are glad that I'm not here. So
We made it across the street safely, Mark.
there, there you go, big boy.
We use the buddy system. We use the buddy system.
You guys are fine.
But yeah, we were just kind of recapping the unfortunate situation. I know you had did a video on the channel. I think it was Monday, wasn't it, or was it Sunday that you
I
did that
posted
video?
something late on Sunday
Okay.
when I clearly stated, hey, I'd like to see more evidence, information, but I'm going to go with what I've got and what I've seen. Then I got all sorts of people sending me on Twitter in response to that, different angles and so forth, which was great. I asked for that. And then we went live Monday for about 2 hours to get people's responses and so forth. Yep.
Yeah, it just unfortunate, and my initial thought, and this will kind of be kind of the end, because Dre and I talked about it before. I'm like, I don't want to spend the half of the show on this, because it
Once you
not
go down that
anything
road, it's
great.
hard to pull yourself out.
Yeah. My initial thought was when they had 4 players that were suspended. I'm like, man, and I was someone who did not look at a lot of those videos. I think I probably saw 2 or 3 clips of him, and after that, I'm like, okay, this is not great. So I chose not to watch a lot of it, but from just a few views of it, I'm like, there were way more than 4 guys that were involved. And then you saw 4 more announced. And my thought is it's probably going to kind of trickle this way. But what are your, quick thoughts on it so we can talk about some football instead of an assault, unfortunately.
Very briefly, because yes, folks, you can check out me talking about it. And again, keep in mind, if you check out that video, hold back your criticism. It was at a point on Sunday where we aren't with the same evidence and information right now. But I'll basically say that I think there is balance here in regards to, okay, was the tunnel the issue? Of course, the tunnel's not the issue. That doesn't mean you don't put good procedures in place to try to protect people and try to alleviate those situations or prevent those situations as much as possible. Yes, you should evaluate those kind of situations to say, well, okay, let's put better procedures in place and separate, because we are, the one disclaimer here is we are asking young men to be civil and professional and all those good things as they grow into being men. So those are good things. That's one of the reasons they're in college, and should be, that they're learning to be professionals and be appropriate and all those sorts of things and act like class individuals. And so this is part of the maturation process. But we're also asking them to run into each other at full speed for 3.5 hours in a very emotional game. And then we're going to have them walk shoulder to shoulder to a locker room.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I was saying, Mark.
We'll just scream at them to be emotional and hit harder and we gear them up, but you're supposed to turn that off.
Yeah,
it's
difficult to do. It's very difficult. And overall, I want to make the point, like, I think the situation with the tunnel, things like that, overall is fine. I think some small adjustments need to be made, and maybe it's only for these big games, right? The big rivalries, Michigan, Michigan State, Michigan, Ohio State. Maybe that's the only time where adjustments need to be made. Maybe if you play Rutgers next year at home, nothing is going to happen, right? So it is what it is at that point. So, anywho, so I, from advice from Mark Rogers, had tweeted that. So my actually only thing that I was going to be disturbed about, and I knew it was coming as an Alabama fan, was that TCU was going to be ranked lower than Alabama. And I knew it was going to happen, and I thought it was crazy. I just didn't think it was right. I'm like, listen, TCU is undefeated and has some very high quality wins, and I just thought they should have been ranked higher than Alabama. That was my big gripe. I knew it was going to happen before the polls even came out, but kind of what I thought was a bit of a surprise was Michigan landing at number 5. Now, disclaimer, it is November 2nd today, so I get it. Right? In the grand scheme, it doesn't matter. If Michigan wins the Big Ten, they're going to the playoff, and they're probably going to be the number 1 seed. So I do understand all of that, right? Now, I'll preface it with that. But what are your thoughts? I'll go to you first, Dre. Your thoughts on the first rankings with Michigan being number 5?
Yeah, well, for one, a couple of things. What people have to realize is this is what the committee wants. They want to draw you in. They want to get you having conversations about it. They knew what they were doing when they put Clemson, I think, 4 and Michigan 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? And number 2, we're going to definitely see some kind of change next week in the top 4 because Tennessee plays Georgia. If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
So there will be change regardless. So I'm not too worried about it because Michigan has everything in front of them. And even if you were in the camp, well, look, I understand that, but, what if we do have one loss and it is Ohio State? I still think, I'm speaking for a fan who thinks this, I still think we deserve to be in the running for that 4th spot. Well, what I think should give you a little bit of solace is the fact that Tennessee has to play Georgia and one person does have to lose. and that may help you. So depending on how the rest of things shake out. So I mean, I'm not worried about it. If you want to use and say, Michigan's, you know, uh, uh, non-conference schedule is the majority of the reason why you placed them 5, as well as their playing style. I can't argue that. Look, Des, we said it going into the going back to the preseason that the non-conference was pathetic. It is what it is. Even me and you, like off, with our personal conversations, you told me like, dude, if you guys, don't win out, I'm not sure if you do get in. You've been pretty, and you said due to your non-schedule, your non-conference schedule. Um,
And
Now,
the reason I said that, sorry to cut you off. The
yeah,
reason I said that is because the thing is, if you become a one-loss non-conference champion, now everything comes into play, right? So
mhm,
if you win out, it doesn't matter. No one cares. It does not matter. We don't care who you played in the out of conference. You beat everybody on your schedule. But if you are a one-loss non-conference champion, now the entire resume comes under scrutiny, right? Where they're looking at everything under a magnifying glass. So now, right, not only your loss, okay, how bad was it? Who did you lose to? Was it on the road? Were all your guys healthy? And then they also go to, okay, well, who's your best win? And now they start to comb through who the best win is, strength of schedule. So that is why I said that, was because when you're one loss non-conference champion, now from game 1 to game 12 now is going to come under scrutiny. Go ahead,
no,
Jerry.
no, no, absolutely. And the if you want to have a conversation about, okay, so you don't like Michigan's, strength of schedule, and you don't, think they've had the most impressive wins this year. I mean, I think it's fair to have the conversation with, does on paper Ohio State have definitively better wins? I can't say they do. Um, Now, that's where the style of play, I believe, does come into the equation. Um, Ohio State, when they do win, well, they've won every football game, but they are very exciting. They put up a lot of points. Um, they definitely win on most weeks. I guess you can say prettier than Michigan. So, do I think that's fair? Not necessarily. And I think, if anything, last year showed you, Des, because we didn't, we had our doubts, was that, Michigan wins their way. And when they're clicking, it doesn't matter how explosive a team like Ohio State looks, they can beat you playing their game. They can. So, I think it's fair to say, hey, why should Ohio State necessarily be above Michigan? Why should Clemson necessarily be above Michigan? Right? Because we all know the ACC is not very good either. So, look, man, at the end of the day, it's not worth getting in a twist about. It will play out like it always does. And best case scenario, to prevent feeling any heartache, if you're a Michigan, if you're for the Michigan football team, is to take care of business, continue to win, and show up to the horseshoe undefeated, and do what you got to do.
Mark, what are your thoughts on Michigan being number 5?
Well, it will play out, but this is not the NFL where objectively it's going to play out. So I don't need to be concerned with what anybody thinks. The wins and losses stand on their own. But yeah, if Michigan takes care of business and wins the conference, they're good, to Dez's point. But also, I believe, to Dez's point, is that they're going to put themselves in a situation where, if they lose to Ohio State in a really good game, and they have a legitimate claim as one of the 4 best teams in the country at 11-1, with a 30-27 loss to Ohio State, they're in jeopardy of being left out because of their non-conference schedule, because we have a situation in the SEC in particular where we've got 3 teams in play. Well, we really have 4 teams in play, but one of them is going to get automatically knocked out. But we could have 3 teams in play at the end in the SEC, plus other conference champions that could have one loss at TCU, at Clemson, that Michigan, with a win against Notre Dame or somebody, not that Notre Dame's that good this year, but they're starting to play better ball. They've got a couple decent wins, that Michigan would get a nod over, possibly, even though they didn't win a conference, with that type of non-conference win versus what they're going to be showing everyone. And that's most likely not going to be enough if they don't win the conference.
Absolutely. Michigan man Jason puts, Clemson will lose to Notre Dame and Georgia will beat Tennessee. We'll be just fine. Honestly, I mean, even in that situation, I mean, okay, Tennessee having one loss, but having that Alabama win, I get it. It was home and it was only by 3, but the committee is going to look at that and say, boy, and now obviously I'm talking if Michigan did not beat Ohio State, but like, I mean, the committee, Tennessee's ranked number 1 right now.
Let's understand there's an either or with Tennessee and Georgia. It's not like one of them's, oh, we need one to beat the other, and when they do, okay, they're both done. No. One of them's going to be in the SEC championship game with 0 losses.
Mm-hmm. And I love some Alabama, but this doesn't look like the Alabama of normal where we would say, oh yeah, if they just make it to the SEC title game, they'll be fine. They have plenty of issues before that, you know. So I think like you mentioned, Mark, like it just brings into play a lot right now. And as I'm looking at the rankings, I mean, you've got USC is a 1-loss team right now. Oregon is a 1-loss team. They're both obviously in the Pac-12. I think that the Pac-12, I think, potentially can throw a wrench into just the plans overall right now, taking it off of Michigan. But in past years, we haven't had to worry about the Pac-12 since, 2016, I think. Washington was the last year that was there.
Yep.
So, you know, it just kind of it throws a wrench in it. That's all. I think it's worth talking about. But it's let's see. Corey says doesn't have anything to do with non-conference. A 1-loss SEC team will get in over 1-loss Michigan. That'll be the spin, but everyone knows we're getting shafted regardless. I don't know. I think if you're talking if it's well, I guess in that case, there wouldn't be a case of Alabama versus Michigan because the only way Alabama would be there would be if they won the conference. But I think Alabama is that team that probably is going to get a benefit of the doubt. I think Georgia is a team just from obviously the recent history of Georgia coming off a national championship. I think if they do lose to, say, Tennessee, I think the committee probably is going to look at that and say, well, there's a good chance there's a good chance that I think Georgia may be in, but I don't know.
Alabama, well, you know what's different about Alabama this year is that even before they took the loss to Tennessee, they barely been keeping their head above water. You know, just avoiding a couple losses this year. You know, it's not like previous years where, like, if I was part of the committee, I would say, look, they've had one loss thus far, but even before that one loss, they barely survived the Texas. Probably should have lost, right?
It looks like last year to me.
Yeah, it does look a lot like last year.
We barely lost to, let me just finish.
Auburn.
It's just, man, yeah, I know, but it's just their defense has been so disappointing. I don't know. They just don't.
Well, the defense actually hasn't been that bad. I think what gets skewed is the Tennessee game because they put up a million points.
They passed the eye test, Desmond. Like, the thing is, like, they don't pass the eye test to me, and I don't know. I mean, and it gets tough, right? Because a lot of times how the games look goes by matchups, play style, things of that nature. But I just don't think that. Look, some of us saw the TCU versus West Virginia game. I'm sorry, like, there's no way in the world I'll pick TCU to beat Michigan. Okay, no way in the world I will pick that. Right? No way I'll pick TCU to beat Tennessee. Not anybody above them, I cannot say definitively. Besides,
but see, here's the tough part is though that's not what it's based off of. You know what I mean? If TCU wins out or is a 1-loss Big 12 champ, I think TCU's going to get in.
I get it. It's just, and the same thing with the Pac-12 with Oregon. let's say somehow, how about this? Let's say somehow Tennessee beats Georgia in a
Okay.
nail biter, right? And Oregon goes on to win the Pac-12. Yes, it's a one-loss conference winner, but you're not going to tell me that first game of the year, Oregon versus Georgia, is not going to go into the committee's mind and weigh heavily, like on their decision, right or wrong. So, I mean,
In what way do you mean? In like Oregon not getting in? Is that what you
yes,
mean?
in Oregon,
Oh,
it's
there's
that
no
fourth
way.
spot between Oregon and Georgia. I
Oh.
get that.
I gotcha. But
Yes,
yeah, but at that point, because see, Oregon already has one loss, right? It's Georgia. But if Oregon wins out and they are the Pac-12 champ, then I think they're getting in. But
look. At the end of the day, man, it's tough to keep out a one. An overall consensus is it's tough to keep out a one-loss conference for a Power Five. It's going to be hard to do that. And by all means, and that's why expansion was definitely necessary because somebody's going to get probably if we have legitimate, which I think is possible, legitimately 5 to 6 really good teams this year, right? No one's great, but 5 to 6 really good teams this year. Yeah, it may be 1 or 2 teams that they probably will, have a real legitimate gripe that not only does our resume match up, but we actually on paper for this particular year should be in the mix,
So it's difficult to leave out a one-loss conference champion. It's only been done a few times, but we're headed toward a situation which we may be there.
It
And
could happen,
we may see 2 left out.
man, that would be crazy.
We've got 5 conferences, and as it stands right now, and
They're all in play. I mean,
the upsets, but the Pac-12 is the one that needs to keep winning because obviously they all have a loss, so they need to keep winning to factor in or they're done. The Big Ten still has some play there because they've got 2 undefeated teams, and Clemson's undefeated, and Tennessee and Georgia are undefeated, although one's going to get knocked off on Saturday. So we could easily be at the end of this with every conference champion having 0 or 1 loss. So there's 5 already. And then Tennessee and or Georgia and Ohio State or Michigan. So 2 other teams that are going to get a lot of consideration with 1 loss sitting there.
man, this might be some serious chaos.
This will be one of those times where like we're going to be like, a lot of people who were against expansion, what? And we already because it's going to be unfortunate. It's going to be unfortunate for some fan base. Like, man, I think 1 loss Ohio State team should get. I think a 1 loss the Michigan team should get. Especially it's funny, for a conference like the Big Ten that does 2 different divisions. You're going to be watching that Big Ten title. How irritating will it be that whoever loses most likely the game between Michigan and Ohio State, they got to watch at home while the other goes to play some crap in the Big Ten West. I'm just being honest. And it's like, and they're like, it's just like, and it's like playing Illinois or something like that. And they're not crap, by the way, because I actually think Illinois is from the pain.
Yeah.
And I give Brett Bielema a ton of credit. I wonder how Wisconsin boosters and them feel about him now. Maybe you should have gave him what he wanted when he was there in the first place.
They're good,
but I know I just say Illinois is like crap, but I'm just making a point. In general, even their good teams in the West are what? You name one year when the Big Ten's West best teams, Wisconsin or Iowa, when they were undefeated, will be even the 3rd best team in the Big Ten East. That's what I mean in comparison to the Big Ten East. Now maybe this year's a little bit different. MSU is down, Penn State coming down. Looks like they may be coming down to earth a little bit. Maybe Illinois. I don't know if Illinois is better than Penn State or not. I guess it's debatable, especially with the quarterback position right now for Penn State. But I don't know. I don't want to go down the road that we're not talking about.
Well, it's ridiculous to think about, but if Illinois runs the table, they'll have a win against Michigan and Ohio State and be the Big Ten champ, and they'll be 12-1.
Oh gosh.
That we could have some chaos going on. Wanted to highlight this comment by Mike Rotunda. Says even if the Big Ten champion has 2 losses, they should be in. I would imagine you gentlemen disagree because I disagree
I'm
wholeheartedly.
not going to be in. I also disagree with that.
Well,
if
but
things
you're
continue the way they are.
awarding 2 different things, though, in my mind. Because you're the reward for winning your conference is is literally the trophy and it's saying that the fact that you won your conference. But now it's a different question of whether you are a top 4 team in the country, right? So if I'm part of the committee, I'm like, okay, yeah, you won the Big Ten. Big Ten is a respectable Power 5 conference, but you have 2 losses. So even though you are the champion in that particular conference, it doesn't definitively mean that you're one of the top 4 teams in the country. So that's why I think once you have that second loss, they can become mutually exclusive in my world.
I want you guys to talk as much as possible because I can jump on here whenever I want and talk about this, 24/7 if I want to. But Mike, I will say this. I will be on live Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night. Please call me. Please call me.
I think Mike just triggered Mark.
Yeah, Mike is I mean, I just don't like and here's the thing. It doesn't mean that right in any given year a 2-loss Big Ten champ doesn't deserve to be in, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we're saying that, but this is not the year for that.
No.
Like this is not the year for that.
Too much parity.
Right. Like everybody's in play. Like I mean, think at this point, most years we would have the Pac-12 would be done.
Yeah.
Oklahoma would be the only undefeated or 1-loss team in the Big 12.
Yep.
Notre Dame would be gone as they are now. There would be no G5 team like that. This just isn't that year. You know what I mean? Like there's just too many conferences and teams in play.
You had the number 9 team in the country fall flat in their face and get shut out 0-48. I mean, hey, you're talking about parity this year. What's going on?
I hate to say it, but the Big Ten's not a good conference this year. It's not a good conference. It does not have, nothing can be justified about the Big Ten. Who is the Big Ten beaten outside of the conference? Nobody. Notre Dame. That's the best win by far. That's it.
Yeah, I was gonna say Auburn, but they're awful.
Auburn's awful. Colorado's awful. Everything else is a loss. Boston College is awful. The Big Ten, I can sit here and say I would love to see the Big Ten play more out of conference games, and I'd like to see more out of conference games out of everyone for a better sample size, because I do think that the Big Ten's better than what those non-conference results show. But because Michigan didn't play anyone, Maryland didn't play anyone, Minnesota
didn't play anyone.
Well, I mean, they put Notre Dame on the schedule.
Yeah.
No, I need Mark. We need to throw that in there now. I know that y'all try to get.
No. We're talking about completely different things when we're talking about Notre Dame not being like what we expected them to be, top 5 to top 10, versus them. They're still a legitimate. They're still the best team that anyone in the conference has played out of conference.
Out of conference, yes. Oh, okay.
The entire conference.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
So yeah, it's not a great win. But Notre Dame went out there and smacked Syracuse by 3 scores and North Carolina by 3 scores. They're still a legitimate top 25-40 team. My point being that I think the Big Ten's better than it is shown, but you got to go based on the results, and the Big Ten has beaten no one.
Well, gentlemen, let's say this. I mean, look, if you want to be honest, the Big Ten has 2 really good football teams and maybe a solid one in Penn State. And then the rest is back. Well, Illinois, and then second tier solid in Illinois and Penn State. And then everybody else besides that is either average or bad. Not, average or bad. But the Pac-12, I guess, let me make it simpler. Michigan has probably 2 really good teams. The Pac-12 has, as of now, Oregon, UCLA, and USC, as of now, especially record-wise. Now, that will play out, but, could you argue that maybe in this weird year, the Pac-12 has a little bit more substance in terms of quantity. Maybe not the top two quality, maybe a little bit more quantity than the Big Ten has.
Yes, you can.
I guess it's major. Yeah, So it's now we're not the ACC. The Big Ten's not the ACC by no imagination, but or the Big 12. But
I don't know. And Big 12
I could
is
make my stand for the ACC, and I bashed that conference for 5 years. But this year, I could make a pretty good case that the ACC has played better than the Big Ten.
Hey, these athletic directors in the Big Ten need to get to work. Y'all need to schedule something. They start working on y'all. Something.
The Big Ten hasn't beaten LSU, hasn't taken Tennessee to overtime, hasn't beaten Texas Tech even, and I could go on.
Yeah, it's interesting.
It's on your schedule. You know, someone I brought this up last week, guys, and it was funny after the game against MSU. Besides the incident, I saw some people, mention this about, as we all know, Jalen Davis or Jaden Davis. I mispronounced his name possibly, but one of the 5-star quarterbacks for I think the 2024 class. He was in attendance at the game, and I said last Wednesday, I'm like, let's just be honest here. Let's take off our homework glasses for a second, and let's think about this. If you are a 5-star quarterback, or even a 5-star receiver, a 4 or 5-star, highly sought after players in those skill positions, besides running back or offensive line, what's the draw of playing for Jim Harbaugh in his offense in particular, right? Because, and I'm happy. I can't wait. If Davis wants to come here, sign him up. Son, we can't wait to get you. But I'm just thinking about, I'm watching the game, after the game's over, and, it's just, if you're a highly regarded receiver, how can you look at our program besides everything that comes with it, right? The atmosphere, the history, the jumping up, touching the, all the cool stuff. Like when you actually watch the play, it's like, am I ever gonna get the ball?
Well, I think I don't think we kind of talked about this on Saturday, but I also don't think you're being fair to Michigan because it's all part of the decision. All of it is. Like you can't just pull out the cool stuff and just be like, well, take away the atmosphere and take away, running out of the tunnel. Like, take that stuff away. What is it all about? Well, if you go to Alabama and take that stuff away, what is it? Like, you know what I mean? It is a recipe that everything matters on the like it's a menu that everything matters. You can't just say, well, how good is your restaurant if you don't have any appetizers, or if I take away all your entrees? Like that's part of it. And also too, I mentioned, number one, you're going to play in big games, which that matters to most kids, I would say. You're going to be on TV a whole lot, which I think also matters to most kids, and you're going to most likely go to the NFL. Like, I mean, and that's, I would say, is what most of these kids care about, especially the high level kids.
No, I get it. It's like, man, you have one of those highly sought after kids. I just would have liked to put on a pretty good show in terms of, I want a Jaden Davis to to when he see himself in the winged helmet and see himself doing what he does best, which is not probably handing off the football, but slinging the football around, And so it's just some kind of a concern. Look, I'll say this much. I am putting a lot of pressure on our coaching staff to bring in some highly talented running backs, because if you want to, showcase your skills as a running back or offensive lineman, come to the University of Michigan. I'll say that for sure. But it is a little concerning. But look, they're getting wins. We're all happy about it. It's just one of those things I kind of think about, in the back of my mind. How is it being perceived? Because make no mistake about it. One of the biggest issues, if you're not going to be very efficient in the red zone, is that you better be finding ways to score in an explosive manner, right? And You know, we can run the football very well and gash you that way, but it helps to be able to be a little bit more efficient with having a passing game outside of finding your tight end for a hitch route or a drag route across the field. You know, like we got to get a little bit more here, guys. You know, this isn't the same old story as last year, but I'm just saying they have to find some kind of a wrinkle here to add to their offense. I mean, you know, as off and broken as Michigan State's offense is, you know, at least they give their guys a shot to make plays. You know, you see one of your receivers, you got Keon Coleman outside, give him a chance to win a 50-50 ball, right? And I just would at least like to see the attempts. Not a lot. I'm not asking for a lot. Look, we gotta stick to our bread and butter. I'm fine with that. But I just would like to see at least be an occasional attempt, you know.
Well, I think if Michigan can get that deep passing game rolling, then I mean I would say their offense would be unstoppable. I mean it's going to look a little bit different than some of these air raid teams, but if they can get that element, boy oh boy, they're going to be a really difficult team to beat. So yeah, I think that is it for us. We will be here late on Saturday. These night games, man. Oh man, it's a little tough.
Yes, they are. But you know what? Hey,
we'll have a good time with it.
It's also, we're actually thinking about this. The sad part is that we're now in the last. So that's sad. A lot left to play. A lot to play for. And I just want to close with saying this, that guys, despite ugly situation, both sides need to find a way to heal and learn and self-evaluate how we can all handle this rivalry better going forward. And I hope that this is seen more as a learning opportunity for everyone. From an administrative standpoint, we talked about security, different ways of getting these kids in and out the locker room. I hope this is more of a learning experience, Des, than another log in the fire to another situation,
Yeah, I think it's something you gotta just move on from. Obviously the legal situation is gonna play out, so it's one of those things for Michigan. Get ready to rock and roll. You got Rutgers coming up this week. Really, Michigan's got 3 weeks to really figure out the deep ball pass game. Like you said, doesn't have to be 10 attempts down the field every single game, but if you can get hit 2 or 3 each game, then boy oh boy, that Ohio State defense is gonna have a long day. So
I want to see JJ every now and then. Give your guys a chance, and also more importantly than that is the red zone. You cannot, look, Jake Moody is a fantastic kicker, but to be honest with you, I really don't like seeing him tried out there. Not because I don't trust him. I actually trust him very much. I know it's money in him, but I only want him out there for PATs. Be 100% honest with you. So, that has to. They have got to. And good thing. Des, I like that. I heard, and I'll end with this. Both Blake Corum and pretty much everybody that spoke post game, they have. Obviously, it should be a point of focus going forward.
Absolutely. All right, well, that is it for us. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Please give us a thumbs up on your way out. We would greatly appreciate it. And that is it for us. We will see you guys late Saturday once the Michigan games wraps up. We will be here live talking about the game.
See you.
See you.